Hello everyone, thank you for joining this first session on the basics of GIS within QGIS. This is a hands-on tutorial where we'll go step by step through various tasks you can perform with QGIS. By the end of this series, you'll be able to create beautiful maps, conduct interesting analysis, and produce impactful data visualization. This tutorial is part of a three-part series. So first, we should make sure that you have the right version of QGIS installed. So it should be at least 3.16. If you have anything above it, it's great as well. With GRASS 7.8.5. So we're gonna start and make sure to open the version with GRASS. You can also open it without, but opening it with will give more geoprocessing tools that we will need further in the training. So this loading page will open. It may take a bit of time to load. So be patient, and in the meantime, we're going to look into the data you received. So you should have received all of this data that you will need for the exercise. So you can see that there's various data types, data set types, and it covers the three main families of data you will encounter in GIS. The first one is what we call a geo package. So it's with an extension GPKG. It's to save shapes and only shapes. So shapes are point, area, and lines. They're very common in GIS. It's one of the most useful format to create maps. So point could be anything. It can be a location of specific items. It can be villages, cities, any information. Areas will cover, it can be a lake, administrative boundaries, and line will be more for like roads, electric lines, and things. So those are the three main shape you will find with the vector data. There's other data sets, like data format for vector data, such as a shapefile, GPX, KML, which is the one used in Google Earth. But you can also use in GIS what we call tabular data. So it's maybe the format you're most familiar with. XLX file, CSV file, or even text. So all those tables can be imported within GIS, but it really depends first on the formatting of the data. How complex is the Excel document? Is the information right away on the first line and things like this? And also, is there an information within it that allows us to use it within GIS? So to have any information to use within GIS, so we can start with this one. But the idea is you need something that will give an information on the location. So the easiest for us is coordinates. So it's the case with this one. So we have the name. So we have the name of health facilities in Ethiopia. Woreda is the administrative level that they depend on. And then if the point is valid, then you have an object ID and X and Y, which are the coordinates. But if we didn't have the coordinates, the name, a combination of name, location, and country will allow us to do what's called geocoding, which is the process of same as when you look for an address within Google Maps, but more automated. So we could give a full table and ask a geocoding engine to look for it. So there's like some like Mapbox that you have to pay for after a certain amount of points. But there's also OpenStreetMap that allows you to search within the address database. Another way would be if here, for example, we have an object ID, but if we had another ID that allows us to connect this location with a layer of points or with another GIS layer that has a corresponding ID. So then you can use it as a key to connect the two. And finally, we have one last big family of formats. This one cannot open. So it's I'm gonna open it here directly in QGIS. So it's what we call the raster data. So raster data is an image made of many pixels, and every single one of those pixels will have a value. So this value can either be what allows the software to make it into a satellite imagery with like real color, like what you expect to see like a regular satellite imagery, but it can also translate information about elevation, um, any information collected on this specific location, and here it collects the population within that pixel. So it's a process that's made by Columbia University and the World Pop project, where they have the census data and they try to merge it with information about buildings and administrative boundaries to kind of deaggregate this information of population and try to put it as precise as possible. But we'll dive into this later. So now that you have your folder, now that you have a folder with all this data, the best would be to copy it and create a new folder within your desktop or any location you want. And so we're going to be working with Ethiopia today, so we can create a new folder called Ethiopia map, for example. And we're going to copy within it all the data. So while it's processing, we're going to look into the interface of QGIS. So this is what you should see when opening QGIS. It might have some differences based on the version you have in the order of the items, but what you see should be quite similar. So you have all the items on the top, similar to most desktop software, where you have like the project, which allows you to create new one, open an existing one, save, and then you have like all the parts about like properties that will apply specifically to this project. So not things that you want to apply to all QGIS when it opens, but things that could be specific to this project. We'll see more detail on that later. And all this part about layout that we'll see in the last session. So layout is kind of a graphic interface for you to create the maps to share it. So you will have, this is the working environment where you can prepare the data, conduct analysis, and then you have another one that will be more of a graphic part, which will allow you to create reports, maps, and that will be the one you can share. All the edit part we'll see in the next session. View layers. We'll look into layer very soon about how to create one and how to add existing one. Then settings here are the settings that will apply to all of your QGIS interface anytime you open it. So it's for things you really want to modify. So it can be like the language, the size, the color, things like this. Plugins we'll see in the last session. So it's to add any extension. Then here you have what we call geoprocessing tools. So it's when we see geoprocessing, it's any modification of the data that we apply on GIS data. So we will see more into it later, but it's all the panels of tools and function you can do so either on vector or on the raster dataset. So same like for processing will allow you to more monitor the processing you have currently, and then you have the help. So first we're gonna, before doing anything in the project, we're gonna save as, and we're gonna go to the location we created, Ethiopia map, and save QGIS project. So I'm gonna call it Ethiopia map. So this will allow you to save the data and have like a clear project, it's better to have a project in the same location as your data, and it will make it easier then to share the data with other people within a package or a zip file. You will be able to share this. So now that we saved it, just think of saving quite often. There's also an autosave option, but it's good to have a reflex to save often your project, mostly after any big geoprocessing, because depending on the amount of data you're working with, it's possible that some of the processing might not work the first time. You might have to divide the data based on the capacity of your computer. It may be too much for it to handle. So QGIS is a software that can sometimes crash when the processing is too high. So it's better to save often. So we're going to look into different ways of importing data. You saw that for importing the raster dataset, you can just drag and drop. So this is the case for all the dataset. So first we're going to add so this first one, so admin 0 Africa. Admin 0, so is the way the GIS data is organized, and it's more of a constant within throughout organizations to call depending on the name. So in all countries, the name of the administrative level will not be the same. So to have something constant, there's levels. So from 0 to 4, but it can go further for like neighborhoods and things, but it's mostly 0 to 3 and 0 to 4 in some cases. So admin 0 applies for the country level. So we're going to add this data. So you can just do drag and drop, and this window will appear. And you have to select the first one, the polygon of admin 0. And you should see the data appear. So the borders are very precise, so you can see that when you open it, it takes very little time, but it takes a bit of time to load. So you see the country appear one after the other. It's because of the precision of the boundaries. There's another way to add data, because when you drag and drop, there's some other processing that will be made automatically without the user input, but it may be better in some cases to actually select some of the aspects. So you can add layer, and here you can see that there's a lot of options, but the most important that we'll see today are the add vector layer that we talked about, the raster, and the delimited text layer. So the delimited text layer is any tabular data. So we're going to add the raster layer that we saw earlier. So here it asks you if you want from a file or from a protocol. So in our case it will be from a file, but it can also be from an API, from a cloud location, etc. But for now we'll focus only on files. So you can open here, it's going to open your last opened project. Now let's go on Ethiopia map, and here I want to add the Ethiopia PD2 2020 1 kilometer TIFF. So here the name of the data set is clear and understandable, and that's important when you save data, to have something that contains as much information as possible, but within a small name. So here ETH is the ISO 3 of Ethiopia. PD is for population density. 2020 is for the last year of update, so this one is for 2020, and 1 kilometer is the resolution. This is especially useful when you have here, so you have a time series. They produce this data for many years, so you can see directly which one you're working with, but they also produce it with various resolutions, so right away you can see what data you're working with. So here we can add the raster dataset. You click on add, then close, and you see it appear on Ethiopia. You can see that it's Currently, it looks a bit weird because some of you can see that some of the pixels are missing in some locations, and that all the rest is completely black. So we're gonna look into this later. But first, let's keep adding some data. Now we're gonna add another vector layer. We're gonna add the large free-flowing rivers. And yes, let's do that. So here you can see the map here. But the easiest is to do the drag and drop. So we're gonna do that for the two others. And energy sector. And finally the tabular data. Okay, so I had to pause the recording for a bit because by adding a lot of data, the QGIS needed a bit of time to load and was not responding. So here you see a good example of a GeoPackage that has various data type within. So some vector dataset like shapefile can only contain one layer and one type of shape. In GeoPackage, so it's a package, and within it you can have multiple datasets. And this it's the case for this one, the energy sector, where we have power lines and power plants. So we're gonna add both to our map. So it might take a bit of time. When you don't see the data appear right away, it's better not to click anywhere because this will put it into not responding mode. It's better just to wait for it to appear, even if it takes a bit of time. So now you can see that there's a lot of data within our map window, and we'll have to organize it. But first, now that we have all of this, we're going to be able to look into some of the elements. So to come back on the QGIS interface, you can see that the map is the part that takes most of the screen. It's really like where most of the work happens. So that's really the most important part of the software. On the left, you have a browser. So it's the location. It's a way to see all the data available within your computer. So it has the project. So it's because we saved our file Ethiopia map within a folder. It will take all the data within this folder, and it will appear here. But you can access any of your data that's stored within your computer, and you can also have connections to database, online services, cloud storage, etc. But all of this we will see later. So this is the browser window, and below you have what we call the layer panel, and you see that anytime I added data, it appeared here. And so you see all the data set is within this table. Once you start having a lot of them, you can try to look at them, search for specific ones. But one thing we can already do is maybe like unclick some of them to only show what we want at first. So in our case, maybe we want to see only the boundaries of Africa to start doing the first part. You can also move the items, and one thing we can do right now is organize our data in groups. So it's the second one here that allows you to create a group. So we're gonna call this one river to not have to select and deselect all the let's keep them selected. But this way we can hide all of them at once instead of having to click every item every time. and we're also gonna group those two into what we're gonna call energy sector. You can also change the order of the data. So for example, if we were to put the admin on top, then none of the rest will be visible. So yeah, the order you see here is the order in which the data will be drawn. And you can then filter the data and delete various layers. So now that we have some data, we can look into some of the aspects above. So the first small panel is exactly what you had under Project tab. So saving, creating a new layout, etc. Then we have something very important, which is the selection. So we can select a feature. So this one allows you to select either with drag and drop or directly on by selecting one. You have other selecting options such as polygon, freehand, radius. They're all like kind of the same concept. But for example, freehand will allow me to, for example, if I just want to select something around here, I will do like this, and once I stop clicking, it will. But one that's more important for use is so you can unselect here, unselect everything, and here you can select based on what we call expressions. So it will open this panel. This panel will come like this. Window will appear in many cases, not only for this tool but for other ones that we'll see later, and it's very important. Within it, one of the important part is the field and value. So it will take. So you have to be first. You have to be like selected on one of the items. So far we selected admin 0 Africa. So it will show all the fields that appear within the table. And let me go back a tiny bit. So when adding the data, we're gonna see further how to do the selection. But when having the data, you can see that there's shapes, but there's also information linked to the shapes, and that's the important part. So in our case, it's a table made of, so we can see that it's made of 58 features, so 58 countries within the dataset, and it contains many columns with different information, such as the ISO 3, so we saw for Ethiopia it was ETH, an ID of admin 0 that take the ISO 3, and the date of last update, then the admin 0 name, then you have like different another label depending on if the country name is different, or if it's not a country but it's part of another country. And then there's some information specific to KFW to know if it's part of IPEX portfolio or not. Then we have region code that allows us to do some further filtering. So we have region code and sub-region code. And then you have some other information. So here it's the total population, so T, and then population under 4 years old, between 15 and 24, and 60 plus, and then female or male. So you can see that while this table makes sense to a person that created it or worked with it often, it's not it cannot always be used right away by people. Like it's not very easy to guess what the field names are. So that's why we advise often to have metadata with it, some information about the different fields, where the data is coming from, so on and so on, and really to give some detail about the data set. You can also open, so here we open the table by doing right click, open attribute table, but you can also do it here. So next to the selections, you have all of those, which are items that allow you to move on the map. So you can move by clicking, while you click, the map will move. You can zoom in. This one allows you to zoom full for your for all the dataset. It will not only be for the one you currently selected. It will be for the all datasets. So here the river data is a worldwide data, so it will show for all of this. But you can zoom by one of the easiest way to zoom is to maintain your click, create a square around the area you want, and release so that it will zoom on the country you want to display. All of this we will see later. It's about creating either a map or what we call a special signet and bookmarks. This small icon that show you like Y and a mouse allows you to click on items to have some of the information. So if you go here, it will replace the browser window by this identify result. So it will show you the specific item you clicked on, and it will have all the information we saw earlier in the tabular data, but just displayed this way. Then here you can open the table. Here you can enter what's called the field calculator. The field calculator is a powerful tool. It looks a bit like the selection tool we saw earlier, that we'll look into more detail now, but it allows you to create a new field or update an existing field, and while using some of the existing one to do a calculation. So for example, we could create a new field. Let's say I'm looking for youth, but I not specifically, I don't agree with the age bracket they created. So I want to create a population between 0 and 24. Instead of doing 0 to 4 and 4 to 15 and 15 to 24, I want to do a 0 to 24. I will say that it's a whole number, so you have other options. It can be a decimal number, text, all JSON code, some date, or a boolean. But for me, I want it to be a whole number, and I will use existing fields. So I will look for the data we have. So here I see that there's 0 to 4 and 15 to 24. I don't know if 4 to 15 is missing, but let's see. And let's try for Ethiopia. So here you can create a new field. So we're gonna call it T0 to 24. It will be a whole number. It can also be a decimal number, text, date, or a boolean. But in our case, we want it to be a number. And then you can see here fields and value. It takes all the information you saw in the tabular data, link to it, and we're gonna take 0 to 4 and 15 to 24 like this. And then here some of the country have like missing data on this. We don't have information for all the country. So let's try now Eritrea as it. So here you can see right away if your code worked, or if your small addition worked. And here it is. So we can know that in Eritrea there's 1.4 million people. And it will create a field within your table. So now if I click on Eritrea, I can see that there's a new field. The new field is also present for Ethiopia, but unfortunately we don't have the values. So it will create new. This controls it as well. Okay, so this is the field calculator, very useful. And you can see that without clicking on this, so which is toggle editing, it went right away in editing mode because you modified some aspects, but we'll see more into editing mode next time. Let me save the data, it can take a bit of time. Yes, and stop editing. Then here you have a toolbox that just allows you to toggle the toolbox window, where we will have all the different information. So this is really the more advanced part of QGIS that we'll see next time. You can also do like measurements from one location to the other in meters or kilometers, very basic ones. And so yeah, that's it for this part of the interface. So now there's one aspect we didn't see yet, but it will be important. I will not enter into the detail because with allocated time it's not really possible. But to go from a globe to a flat 2D map, it's impossible to keep all the information precise. So you can either keep the shape as it is, or the size, the area, but it's not possible to keep all. It's possible to keep all the information as they are on a globe. It's what we call the projection. I invite you to look further into it, but in the software, it translates into this at the bottom, where you see the current code, which is 4326, and it's the most common. It's called Mercator. It's the one you see on most of the maps, but it has one major issue. It's the size of the country to the north become very, very big as compared to the one close to the equator that are like that appear smaller than they are. So in our case, for Ethiopia, we're gonna move we're gonna keep a Mercator projection, but use one that allows us to measure distances, because this Mercator 4326 is in the measurement is made in degrees, and it doesn't allow us to create a measurement that we will need later in the process. So we can check what is currently the projection of this layer, and we can see that here it was assigned 4326, but now we would like to save it as 3857. So still in Geo package, you go to the folder you saved, and we're gonna name it admin 0 Africa, and we're gonna add 3857 just to know what is the difference between the two. And here we're gonna change it to 3857. If you don't have it within the CRS, it's here. You can look 3857. It will tell you that it's pseudo Mercator, and it will give some information about it. And here you can see that the length unit is meter, 1 meter, while the 4826 was in degree. So 3857, we're gonna click on this. Don't modify anything else, just here maybe just keep it as admin 0 Africa. And here you can select add saved file to the map. So all of this allow you to save the vector layer in the folder. If you did any modification and you don't want it to impact the original layer, you can save as instead. So it's going to create it, and here it goes, we have a new one. can remove the previous one. So for now, we're just gonna work on this layer. And here now you can look, you can change it to 3857. And you can see that it didn't impact too much the size, the shape, but sometimes when looking into very different, let's see, sometimes when you look for another projection, it might fully impact it. For example, if I were to take the projection specific to France, it will really change the shape of everything else, because it will be, you can see that it's starting to look a bit like as if it was a globe, but it's really because this projection is centered on France to try to have the best balance between shape and distances. So it only works for this country. And when you're working really on something specific, it's better to look for the actual the best projection for this country. And in order to do that, you can go on this website. Let me show it to you. Yeah, you can go on this website called epsg.io, and here you can enter a country. So let's do Ethiopia, and it will give you the various projection system you can use in order to have the best use for your country. So for example, if we were to take this one, the Adindan, it's gonna tell you what are the accuracy is for the different countries. So you can see for Ethiopia, it's 6 meter. It also works for Eritrea, South Sudan, and Sudan. But you can see that like once you start going into like a bit further countries, the accuracy will decrease. So it's really like to work on one specific country when you need something more precise in construction or so on. But it will not be precise enough, but at least to have like a good location, it will not allow you to do like to go into like floor plans and construction plans and things, but at least to have like more precise location within the country. So it's on epsg.io that you can find this. So now we're gonna go back to the 3857 projection to have something that works. Let's say we want to work on the whole country. So you can see that Africa takes a different shape. So we're gonna just keep working on this one for now, and maybe try to do some try to highlight a bit the fact that we're working on Ethiopia, because so far it appears the same as the rest. So we're gonna create 2 layers. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer, and here I'm gonna change the name. So, but be careful, because so I'm gonna change the name of the end, not the beginning. So I'm gonna keep admin 0 Africa, and I'm gonna do Ethiopia, and this one I'm gonna keep it full, call it just Africa. And I do this because it's important to maintain that even though I created a copy of it, just duplicated, and I might later on filter on it, any edits I do within this one will impact the other one as well, because they still look into the same source. So if I modify the name of Ethiopia, or if I enter the population or modify the shape, I will feel like I'm only working on Ethiopia, but I'm actually impacting the dataset behind. So to keep that in mind, it's better to keep the name as it is. So we're gonna go back on the selection tool, and fields and value, and we're gonna do ISO 3. And here I could know by heart like the ISO 3, but it might be useful for me just to make sure to load all the values that are available. Also, in case maybe it was written in small caps, in all caps, because I don't know, it's better to load the value of unique values to make sure that that is written the way I want. So here I can go down and I see ETH is the one I want. So here it goes. I have my expression, and I can select all the features. Sorry, I'm on the wrong. Here it goes. Because I had two layers, I was selecting on the one below, and the one above was still selected. So here we go. You can see Ethiopia. So this is a very basic one, but you can also do. Let's copy this one to use it later. So we can look, for example, into population. So population above, let's say above 1 million. Or even 10 million. And on the map will be displayed all the countries that have a population above 10 million. Okay, so this creates a selection, but what we want to do here is really to have a differentiated country. So first, what we can do to avoid having to always zoom in and out of this of Ethiopia is to take maybe the best view of Ethiopia we can. So like this is good, maybe to show a bit the Indian Ocean on the right, the sea here. Maybe we zoom and have a view that we like. Once we have this view, we can create what's called a spatial bookmark. So this bookmark will be like just saving the view as you see it here. So we can call it Ethiopia, and it will take all of this information, and we're gonna save them into project bookmark. Save, and we're gonna create another one, maybe by selecting. Let's say maybe we want the regional context, so we want the neighboring country as well. So we're gonna do it like this, create a new one here. You can also do Ctrl B. And we're gonna call this one Ethiopia region. Perfect. Still in project bookmarks. And finally, maybe we would need a map of Africa as a whole. And let's do Ctrl B again. Africa. Still in project bookmarks. You can save. And now you have two ways to see them. So first you can do show spatial bookmarks. And it will bring you back to the browser windows here. And here you have, under favorite, you have spatial bookmarks, users, and projects. So we're gonna look into project. So the user bookmark, the difference is they will apply to all the projects that you will do in the future. For example, I did one on an island, and now it appears here in the user bookmarks, but I don't have any data for it in this specific project. So it's better to save within your project. So here you can see that I can click on Africa, on Ethiopia, and an Ethiopia region, and we'll go back exactly to how you wanted it to be. So now we mostly have a project ready to go for the next session. There's just one last thing I wanted to do, and that will kind of be the transition to the next one. Is just maybe to prepare the background, just to have something to work on next time. So we have two layers that we created out of the same one, Africa and Ethiopia. So we're gonna put Africa below. And for Ethiopia, we're gonna do what's called filtering here. So we're gonna do the same logic as the selection we did earlier. But when we did the selection, it was really, it was just a one-time thing. It shows you what country. The only way to make it definitive is to save the layer with only the selected features. But in our case, we might want to do Ethiopia now and maybe another country later. We don't want to duplicate, to have to save every time a layer of just Ethiopia. So instead, we can go here and create a new expression similar to the one we did earlier. And maybe you still have it in your... When you copy and paste, so ISO3 equal ETH, we can test, and it's going to tell us the where close returned one row. So one item was selected. So let's do OK, OK. So now they both have the same color, so we don't really know if it worked. So we're gonna look into what will be more, we'll look more into detail next time, but we're gonna go in properties. So properties contain all the information and many modifications you can do on your layer. But what's interesting for us right now is what's called symbology here. And you have those options. So you can choose the type of symbol, and we'll see all of this into detail. But right now, let's look into just making something simple. Let's say that this country, the rest of Africa will be gray, maybe something a bit lighter. So yeah, let's do it like this. Okay. And Ethiopia, we're gonna make it maybe white. Hopla. So now, let's go back to Ethiopia. So now you can see that the country that we will focus on appears a bit differently than the other ones. So this will allow us to highlight it and maybe start working on it. But so far the map is not so great. It's hard to tell the difference between the country we focus on and the missing polygons and the sea. So all of this will be items we will dive into in the next session. Thank you so much for joining, and don't hesitate for if you have any questions. We're now gonna have a 45 minutes Q&A to dive more into any aspects.